Hey guys, I promised to make a little video explaining early clan boss and how to build a good team for it. Um, I apologize for the poor audio quality here. I couldn't find my good headphones, so we're just going to roll like it is. I figured I'd go ahead and kind of set the groundwork as I'm finishing up this minnow run, and then I'll poke through some stuff and make some examples and show some stuff. So, you don't have a lot of great options early on in Clan Boss. If you didn't pull Kale, you're not going to do a bunch of poison damage, unless you got some other lucky pulls. But there are some general things that I've learned in creating a bunch of different accounts that can help you do acceptable damage to the Clan Boss, at least up to normal, and get some stuff knocked out. Uh, those early boxes do help a lot as far as picking up some decent artifacts and whatnot. Um, So that's just kind of what I wanted to approach here is just kind of a more general guide. Um, Most people know, but if you don't, the green or uncommon outlaw monk is commonly used in a lot of clan boss teams. He is second to Kale as far as easily obtainable characters for poison damage. Um, and how you build him depends on how much damage he does. If he is improperly geared and not fully skilled, he's not going to do a ton of damage. So we will cover that as well. I have, on this account at least, already eaten my outlaw monk, but we can poke through him and I can kind of explain how I geared him early on and then as I progressed until I got to a point where I replaced him and he became delicious food to 6-star somebody. My minnow runs are not terribly quick, but we'll have it knocked out here in a minute. And I do apologize. I just kind of shoot all my videos in one go. I don't bother with editing and shit like that. Not enough people watch my videos for me to go out of my way to make them all super nice, like some of these guys that are on Playarium's payroll do. But again, this is mainly for guildies. I'm sorry, clanmates or other people that may have questions. I'll probably direct them to this video. One of the biggest misconceptions a lot of people seem to have is they do this research and they go on Reddit or go on YouTube or look on general websites and they're like, oh, okay, I need to do this with my characters. Well, most of what you see online right now is inaccurate information for newer players. There's just no two ways about that. I was sitting there trying to do this and this and this, and I couldn't get my clan boss damage up because basically people were giving me an in-game perspective on how to approach the clan boss. And to get those early boxes, that's not going to do you a lot of fucking good. So, I mean, it's just, I got really frustrated early on trying to figure out the best way to go about it. And then once things finally clicked for me and I put a solid team together, I've got people asking me, well, how the hell do you do so much damage? Or how the hell do you do this? Um, so just kind of give it a basic rundown on how I approached it. Now, not everybody's, there's nothing one size fits all. Um, but you can generally approximate because you're going to get heroes that, that can do similar things to what I'm talking about. Now, I believe our monk is Sacred Order. Somewhere in here. Yeah, here he is. So, Outlaw Monk, um, easy to farm. He pops out of shards. He shows up on the market all the time. And he's incredibly easy to skill up with duplicate copies of Outlaw Monks. Don't use any books, nothing like that. So, the most important thing is this foul play, getting the cooldown on that. But getting him fully skilled is imperative to doing pretty sizable amount of damage because that extra turn procs all the time. and when it does, you get another chance to throw your foul play up, which is 2 more poison debuffs. Now, the clan boss has um, 10 debuff slots. So, keeping that in mind, my game just crashed. So, keeping that in mind, you want to kind of go appropriately for that. If you use Kale, on average, he's going to have about 4 or 5 poisons up. Some of them are the lower poisons, but damage is damage. So at most, I would recommend running 2 Outlaw Monks. That's just my personal opinion. Whatever works for you works for you. You can run 3, you can run 1, whatever your team composition is. So, Outlaw Monk's a good one. If you started with Kale, you've got an easy in on Clan Boss. Which gives you a good kind of head start and a leg up, but you will pull other stuff that's useful over time. So specifically, let's talk about Ash's account here. She pulled an incredible Void Legendary pretty early on, old Saint Nick, and he is a good mainstay in every aspect of the game. He is ranked as S tier, and he deserves that ranking. He's pretty amazing. You keep him fast, you keep him with high hit points, and you fire off his skills as often as you possibly can. I don't even know what faction or whatever he is. He might be Sacred Order too. So he's a mainstay. He's going to be in every one of her team compositions. This is the big one here. Shield buff. You want to keep his hit points as high as possible while still doing a pretty good amount of damage. He's an HP character, so it's easy to stack those hit points up. This Unkillable comes in very handy towards the end of clan boss fights, so you can pull another round or 2, but that's more important later on when you have War Master and Giant Slayer. Those extra couple of rounds equal a sizable amount more damage. Early on, he just keeps you alive to let another poison tick or 2 go off. Trying to think of some common characters that I pulled across my accounts early on. One of them is Hyria. I don't know how the fuck to pronounce everything, so bear with me. I have her somewhere around here. I am primarily free to play. Spent like $2 on this game, so I am a massive hoarder. So this is one example of someone that is fairly useful in Clan Boss. But I'm going to touch on some other very important stuff here in a minute. So this chick has pretty good crit on her A1. She puts some poison debuffs up on the clan boss or whoever, especially once she's 3-star ascended. I don't know that she's worth books, but she does put poison up consistently enough, and has this lead the charge, which, again, if you have Kale, she usually pulls him in, and that's another basically free poison debuff for the clan boss. Excuse me. So she's one option to throw some poisons up. I'm going to give you a basic breakdown of my team. Early on, I think I still have most of these characters. So one of the main heroes that I used early in Clan Boss that a lot of people didn't seem to get was my Doom Priest. Now, she has a lot of bonuses. I mean, she has a passive heal every turn. Her A1's not so important, but her A2 is absolutely imperative. Now, if you have a hero, Gorgorab, Frostbringer, some legendaries, or Doom Priest, there's a couple others that place this 50% increased attack buff, and there's even some rares that do it. For early clan boss, you want to use this because your characters are primarily going to be except for maybe your farmer's probably going to be in lifesteal. Everybody else you're going to have in DPS gear, whether they're attack or defensive. Um, and I used Ina a lot early on too. She places both a decreased defense and a weaken debuff. Those help you just kind of jack those damage numbers up a lot. Um, the big thing early on is putting up as much damage as you can. If you don't have a lot of poisoners and you're using one or two outlaw monks, then that's going to be a lot of your damage. But your other people, your regular hitters, say for example, I was using Ina. I'm going to want her to hit as hard as possible on this A1 because that's what she's going to be using the most. Fucking thing keeps going out. So I had her geared as much crit as I could get, as much attack as I could stack on, and as quick as I could get her to go. For the easy clan boss, it would be best for your whole team to be running somewhere in the neighborhood of 140, 145 speed. Um, don't draw a lot of attention to Ina's stats here. I have changed her gear just to make her useful for faction wars. She was stripped until a couple weeks ago. So that's just one kind of tidbit there. But right now, if I threw her at the easy clan boss, I mean, she'd do a decent amount of damage. Another good one, this one's farmable, is the War Maiden. You put accuracy, hit points, and as much attack on her as you can, and you can skill her up through duplicates, because she's easy to farm from 9. This decreased defense is a huge buff to have up, and being able to cast it every 3 turns helps a lot with your overall damage. There's always going to be a lot of options, so I'm making this video just kind of to give a base idea and get some questions going and maybe some discourse as far as, well, how do I build my team? I know I have an attack up. I know I have a solid hitter. I know I can do defense down and weaken. Say, for example, you have, what's her name? This one, Aethel. She puts a weaken on her A1, and that helps you do a little bit more damage. Raw physical damage early on is going to be your best friend. If you can't pull a bunch of poison. That's where the monks come in. So as far as gearing the monks, I don't even think I have one laying around. Okay, so as far as gearing the monks go, I'm not actually going to gear this guy because he's about to be food, but I can give you a basic idea. Early on, I put him in accuracy gear. I had at least, let's see, for easy clan boss, you can get away with 2 pieces of accuracy gear. So that's, I'm pretty sure what I did early on. I put him in accuracy and immortal and just jacked his hit points up as high as I could. At 30, he is not all that useful. Once you get him to 40 and 50, he becomes a beast in clan boss. So I would just throw him in immortal gear, and those 2 pieces of accuracy. He can get away with like 50, 60 accuracy on easy clan boss, and then add 40 or 50 as you go up in difficulty to land consistently. So you want to look for immortal gear with accuracy substats and hit point percentage substats if at all possible. You are not worried about his attack. You don't need to worry about his defense too much. You just need to jack his hit points up as high as they'll go and his accuracy. If you do that, he will stay alive long enough to do a crazy amount of damage. And that's why people recommend running 1 or 2 outlaw monks for the easy clan boss. Now that's specific to this guy. If you are, for example, running any of the starters except Kale, you're going to want to get their damage up as much as possible. So say, for example, I was using Aethel. Now, she's actually, she also doesn't really apply to that rule. So if you're using Gaelic or Elhain, you want to get their damage up as much as possible. The only reason I say it's different with Aethel is you want to get as much hit points and crit on her as you can, and keep her attack somewhere in range of her base attack, because she self buffs um, as part of her A3 and allows you to do a significant amount more damage. So that 25% really is a good multiplier. Now, if you're running somebody with a 50% attack up, obviously that's going to override the 25, but it's still, you still got it going, and you can kind of overlap as long as you're doing a manual attack. And that's some, kind of segues into something else, is you're going to want to do manual early on. Unless you have your team set up to the point where you know what they're going to do on auto, um, then you're going to want to run manual attacks just to make sure that you are placing all your debuffs properly, you're placing all your buffs properly. Another thing I didn't touch on was um, healing. Healing does help early on. Um, so if you've got, Apothecary, or if you've got Mother Superior, someone along those lines, you're going to want to go ahead and slot them in. Healers in this game, it is imperative that you run them fast. They have got to be fast. Because even with cooldown reductions, like Apothecary, for example, now his heal is every 2 turns. It helps, but it's not enough to heal everybody and keep them going. So generally, you want to run lifesteal if you can to keep your guys topped off with as much attack as possible, so they hit, or defense obviously, so they hit as hard as they can to heal themselves. And then he's good for kind of topping people off when they get low. Obviously, not everybody's going to have an Apothecary. I didn't pull mine until 54. Um, and then by the time I had him, I didn't really need him. But a lot of people get lucky and pull him early on. He is great everywhere in the game. So here's another couple of common healers I will drag out of the vault. There's a pretty good chance you'll pull at least one of these as you go along. If you do not, then lifesteal gear becomes more important. We'll talk about this chick too. So there's all kinds of options for setting up a solid clan boss team, but just like in an MMO or any other type of game, kind of the trifecta, if you're familiar with the term, is necessary, and that is a tank, an attacker, and a healer. So we've kind of talked about tanks, which is going to be anybody, probably your starter. We've talked about support type roles as far as keeping that attack up going. And conveniently, your tank is also your attacker in this game, so it kind of keeps things simple. So moving on to healers, Mother Superior, I just pulled not too long ago, but I have developed kind of a fondness for her. So another person in a support role, attack down or decrease attack is very important on the clan boss. In this case, he'd hit for 25% less damage. On average, you're looking for somebody that does the 50% decrease attack, which makes him hit half as hard, which means you fight twice as long. So her A2 will heal a single ally by 30% of Mother Superior's max hit point. So you want her fast, and you want her to have a lot of hit points. Mainly because that shield buff that you see there is an excellent, it gives you a little bit extra room for taking hits. And then her A3 is a continuous heal on everybody with a shield buff equal to 10% of their hit point if their hit points are already full when she places this buff. It's very useful to have these shield type things, and I'll segue into that here in a minute. Adriel, not my favorite of the healers, but when she's fast enough, this 20% max hit point and reflect damage is pretty handy. And then on her A3, she has the 50% decrease attack. Now, it's not going to be up all the time, but if you time it properly, it'll give you an extra turn or two, which is cool. Arcanist is another healer. Now, she has a 25% increased attack and a crit rate buff, as well as a 15% continuous heal that can be skilled to 3-turn cooldown. So shit's only down for a turn, and 15% continuous heal is the highest in the game. It's very handy. This fucking cigarette. Okay, and on the shielding front, now Valerie is a farmable support. She's from Chapter 1. Um, she can decrease the duration of debuffs, like the clan boss's poison. And then she also puts an increased attack buff on everybody. And Ascended, she increases the duration of all buffs on everybody, which is awesome for that increased attack that somebody else may have placed already. It's just one more turn is cool. It'll also increase the duration of a shield buff, but those obviously drop when you take a certain amount of damage. But she also casts a shield buff, so she's a good support, and she actually does a decent amount of damage when she's geared properly. As you can see, her skills are based on attack, so she's a little squishy to take into the clan boss, but she still has her uses. Let's see. Another easy farmable is this Diabloist. She drops from Chapter 12. She is a good support hero in that she has the turn meter boost. Decreased turn meter doesn't affect the clan boss. She also has a speed up. She's a good substitute for Apothecary as far as keeping your people fast and getting more attacks in. Alright, so I've rambled and hopefully covered some salient points here. Excuse me. I wish I had a lower clan boss team built to kind of give you guys some idea of what I'm talking about here. But since I don't, I just kind of wanted to cover the basics as best I could. And hopefully somewhere in this rambling long video, I've nailed kind of what you should approach as far as building an easy clan boss team. I was within a couple of weeks of playing, I was already pulling like 3 or 4 million on easy. By doing a lot of research on Reddit primarily. That's kind of my go-to. And figuring out what worked with the team compositions I have. Now, I pulled Kale early on, so that was a big part of that. He was pulling a ton of damage, but I was using him in an Outlaw Monk, plus my Doom Priest and who knows 2 others. And I was able to stay up long enough to do a significant amount of damage. And that was, I was maybe level 30 at that point. So, it's just kind of food for thought. I hope this gave you some idea, and we can open some discourse as to what exactly I'm talking about or what questions arise as far as building for an early clan boss. The only reason I went out of my way to go ahead and make this video was because there's not a lot of information out there about building for early clan boss. Everything is for late stage clan boss, where everybody's talking about attack down and defense down and how to maximize your War Master and things like that. That's, I'm 56, free to play, and just now getting my final tiers of masteries because I played slowly and I kind of slacked in some areas and I got distracted by events, but I'm also not in any particular hurry to get anywhere. But even without those masteries, you can do a significant amount of damage, and it just depends on team composition. So again, thank you guys for your time, and let me know any questions you may have, and we will keep this going, and everybody can get better together. All right, thanks, guys.